visit.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for this special presentation on MTN. I'm Tim McGonigal. Today, President Donald Trump makes a visit to Big Sky Country. He'll be holding a campaign rally in Great Falls where thousands are battling the heat in hopes of hearing and seeing the Commander-in-Chief. Of course, we have been providing comprehensive coverage throughout the afternoon online, and we have plenty of MTN reporters out and about to capture this event for you. We have a reporter stationed at the Montana Air National Guard, where we are awaiting the arrival of Air Force One. Also at the Four Seasons Arena, where there are some protesters standing outside, and of course Montana Expo Park is where the protesters are. Inside the Four Seasons Arena is where President Trump will be speaking. So we plan on having plenty of coverage throughout the afternoon from start to finish for you. And as we said, we have a reporter at the Montana Air National Guard, and that is Sammy Harrelson from our station in Billings from KTVQ. Air Force One, as you can see, has landed in Great Falls, and soon President Trump will be departing the plane and making the trip to Montana Expo Park, where he is expected to speak in front of a crowd of several thousand people. We're told about 6,600 is the capacity of Montana Expo Park. So we again will have plenty of coverage for you this afternoon. President Trump made up some good time because we heard that he was about a half hour late in taking off from the nation's capital, and he got here probably just a couple minutes later than he thought they were going to land. I'm told now that we do have Samantha Harrelson from MTN station KTVQ standing by live now to tell us more about the president's arrival in Great Falls. Samantha?
Well, hi, Tim. Yes, the Air Force One just landed here in Great Falls, and the president will be deplaning shortly. Of course, with him is Senator Daines and Representative Greg Gianforte. Both of them made the flight from D.C. with him today. On the tarmac is Matt Rosendale, who Trump is here campaigning for. He's running, of course, for Senate, and he's running against incumbent Senator Jon Tester, who is running for a third term. Of course, the president knows just how important it is to make sure that he has a majority in the Congress and in the Senate, and so this is one of the reasons he's making his stop in Great Falls today. He's hoping to unseat Tester, who is a Democrat in a very red state, and a very Trump-oriented state. It was a 55% win for Trump here back in November of 2016. So he's hoping that he can swing that vote and keep a Republican majority in the Senate to help push his agenda. And of course, he is just arriving now. The plane's gone out of our sight. It's going to come back around, and the president will deplane here shortly, where all of you will be able to see him.
All right, thanks a lot, Samantha. Big crowd, as we told you, at Four Seasons Arena. They were lining up as early as 10:30 this morning, possibly even earlier than that, and people coming from far away. We've heard that there are people from New York. We talked to someone during our noon show from Boise, Idaho, who was the first in line. And there you can see the people waiting to hopefully get in and see the president. Again, about 6,600 we're told is the capacity. We're very pleased to have with us today here on the desk Dr. David Parker. He's the MTN political analyst, also a political science professor at Montana State University. Thanks for joining us, David. Great to have you here.
Good to be here.
Big question for a lot of folks is why do you think President Trump chose Great Falls for this rally?
If you look at state elections here in Montana, Cascade County, Great Falls, really, really important for Democrats. You know, basically, Democrats can't really win with Great Falls and Cascade County. If you go back to 2016, when the president won 56% of the vote here in Montana, he actually got 60% of the vote out of the viewership area, the Great Falls media market. That's 4 points better than Mitt Romney did. Now, if you compare that to Greg Gianforte when he ran for governor, he only got 47% of the vote out of this media market. So if Republicans want to win, they've got to emulate basically what Trump and to a lesser extent Mitt Romney did in 2012 and 2016. So I think he's going to try to basically get voters who supported him to then vote for the Republican candidate, Matt Rosendale, in the Senate race.
Of course, this is a big Senate race, a big midterm election, because the future of both houses of Congress is kind of in the balance here. And Montana, right there, a key state as well. We've heard, as we look at the crowds again, some people say Jon Tester is vulnerable. Do you think that's true?
I think it's true that Jon Tester is always vulnerable. I mean, he is a Democrat in a state that has voted for nationally for presidential candidates that are Republican. Steve Bullock is in the same situation. So I think he's always vulnerable. And in some ways, I think he's less vulnerable than he was in 2012. Denny Rehberg was a pretty strong candidate, and he was up for re-election for the first time. That said, one of the key factors that is important is that what we saw in 2016, a lot of voters who have less than a college degree typically voted for Democrats for president and typically support the Democratic Party. Well, we saw a reversal of that nationally and to a lesser extent here in Montana. Certainly Trump is going to keep those voters in his camp. And if the Democrats can't do well among those voters, yeah, then Jon Tester might be in trouble and he might be vulnerable.
I know you covered very closely and followed very closely, even wrote a book about the 2012 campaign between Tester and Denny Rehberg. Can you draw any comparisons between those two?
Sure. Well, one of the things I think is important here is that Trump, just like many other politicians here in the state, basically want to make this about party. So he's going to come here and say, in fact, I think he already said, Donald Trump Jr. said this is a race about party and not personality. And I think what's important here is that Montanans find that personality important. And if they don't like the candidates, it's going to be hard to vote for them. So one of the things that Jon Tester's demonstrated is that he's got a big personality, and he's very likable, very approachable. And I think a lot of voters are willing to support him, even if they don't agree with him on a number of issues. And that was the case in 2012. The key thing about that race is that people just like Jon Tester more than Denny Rehberg. So what's going to happen here in this race, classically, is Democrats going to remind voters that Jon Tester's a likable fellow, that he still farms, he's from a farming community, and that he represents Montana's interests. And they've already started this. They're going to paint Matt Rosendale somebody who's not a Montanan. He's not from Montana. He's from Maryland, and they're going to focus on that personality issue. And so, in some extent, you're going to see a replay of what I think you saw in the 2012 election.
All right. We are going to send it back out now to the Great Falls International Airport where President Trump has landed. You just saw Air Force One taxiing there. And we're going to send it to Samantha Harrelson with more on the president's arrival. Samantha?
Hi, Tim. Well, as you can see, Air Force One has just pulled up behind us. The president will be getting off the plane soon. It's been an interesting day here. Obviously, so much work goes into a presidential visit. The Secret Service, the Great Falls Police, the Sheriff's Department, Montana Highway Patrol. So many people are involved in this operation. It's pretty amazing just to see what's been going on in the town of Great Falls just in the last 24 hours getting ready for the president to arrive here. Same thing here. The Secret Service all around us here as the president's getting ready to get off the plane. There's not a huge group of people waiting to greet the president here. Mostly it's just Matt Rosendale and his wife. They'll be waiting for the president to get off the plane. Of course, obviously, as we've talked about, this is as much a stop for Trump as it is a campaign for Matt Rosendale, wanting to keep a Republican majority in Congress. And one of the keys to doing that is unseating Jon Tester and other vulnerable Democrats in the election. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal that the president is in Great Falls. It's a big deal that he is here campaigning for Matt Rosendale. And it's also interesting, we're only about 70 miles away from Big Sandy, which is of course Tester's hometown. So that makes this very personal. And as we have been talking about kind of throughout the day, a campaign for Tester put out some different ads today in newspapers talking about all the bills that Tester has sponsored that have been signed by the president, thanking him for that and thanking him for coming to the state of Montana. So it's been kind of an interesting few days. Obviously, Montana hasn't always been in the political spotlight, and it's something that's been sort of thrown on us the last few years with some pretty important races. So pretty cool that the president is here. Obviously, he was here 2 years ago campaigning for himself. His son was here just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump Jr. We've had some important visits, and of course having Ryan Zinke on the cabinet. Montana's really been thrown into the spotlight, and it's going to be an interesting race between Tester and Rosendale coming up in November. Obviously, a lot of people are watching, and as you can probably see on the camera right now, a lot of press are getting off the plane of the Air Force One. That's the pool of press that travels with the president. So they're all here waiting for him and waiting to hear what he says to Montanans today. Just a pretty interesting sight, Tim.
All right. Thanks a lot, Samantha. Yes, very interesting indeed, and a beautiful day for this. We did say that it is very hot in the Great Falls area today, as it is around much of Montana. Temperatures pushing 90 degrees, so a lot of those folks who have been waiting patiently, we hope they've been waiting patiently for several hours to get into the Four Seasons Arena and see the president. Hopefully they have the sunscreen and the water to stay hydrated. We're expecting the president to get off Air Force One here in just any moment. David, Samantha mentioned it, John Tester put an ad, a full-page ad out in several Montana newspapers today, thanking the president for coming to Montana and touting the fact that he has supported the president. In fact, some people say that he supports the president more than some members of the president's own party do.
What's critical here is that John Tester, part of his re-election strategy is to demonstrate, look, I'm an effective legislator. And in fact, really, why would one re-elect somebody if they can't get the job done? And certainly with on his perch in the Veterans Affairs Committee as ranking minority member, he's been extraordinarily successful. And as he said, 16 bills that he has been the lead sponsor on, signed by the president. That is important. And first of all, it's really hard to pass legislation. I mean, very little legislation is passing at all. Second of all, it's really hard as a minority member of the U.S. Senate to get legislation passed. So his point basically is this: I can work with anybody. Donald Trump, I can work with Barack Obama no matter what. Republicans are going to try to do what they did in 2012, is basically say he supports, he doesn't support the president enough. And just like they basically said in 2012, he supports Barack Obama too much. All
right, well, you can see now President Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, making his way down, and he is now on the ground in Great Falls, and we'll soon get into that vehicle and head to the Four Seasons Arena, where he's expected to speak for, I believe, till about 5 o'clock or so. We're told it takes about, they've estimated about 10 minutes for the trip from Great Falls International Airport, Montana Air National Guard, to Montana Expo Park, where he will be greeted by thousands of supporters in what is, again, being hailed as a Make America Great Again rally. Do you think that this visit will help or hurt Matt Rosendale?
You know, I'm going to go back to October of 1982 when President Ronald Reagan came in a very similar situation, midterm election, basically to try to take out incumbent John Melcher. And Ronald Reagan showed up in Great Falls, and in that election he came to basically support Larry Williams, the Republican candidate. It didn't work for Ronald Reagan. I'm not too sure it's going to work for Donald Trump. You know, we'll see. What I'll be interested to see is in the remarks, how is Donald Trump going to approach this? Ronald Reagan, when he spoke in Great Falls during that race, did not mention Melcher by name at all. He basically just talked about the Republican candidate and said great things about him. I think Donald Trump might be a little different. We'll see. We'll see how much he talks about John Tester and exactly what he says about John Tester.
All right, that's right. We'll see what he says here. And right now we're going to send it back to Samantha Harrelson from MTN's KTVQ out of Billings, and she is standing by at the airport.
Well, Tim, as you could see, President Trump got off the plane and into his motorcade. Following him was Senator Steve Daines and his wife, Representative Greg Gianforte, and then Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., who, as we said, was in Montana just a couple of weeks ago campaigning. They're all in the motorcade now, getting ready to head off to the Four Seasons Arena. As you guys mentioned, not too long of a drive, but of course, made a little bit longer when you've got about 25 cars following you. The president will be there. He'll be speaking for probably about an hour. That's been pretty typical for him. And then he hops right back on Air Force One and he's off to New Jersey. He's got a lot going on in the next couple of weeks. Of course, he's promised a Supreme Court nominee on Monday. He will be going to a NATO summit in Brussels next week, and then he has a scheduled meeting with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. So this kicks off a very, very busy couple of weeks for the president after the 4th of July holiday. And as you can see, there he goes, and he's heading down to the Four Seasons Arena, where we've got reporters ready to cover his speech and cover all of the excitement around having the president here in Great Falls. Tim?
All right, thanks a lot, Samantha. Another thing that the president will have to, certainly be on his mind is the resignation of the EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, and we just found that out earlier today. Dr. Parker, what do you make of that when you hear about that? Another Trump top administrator stepping aside.
You know, one of the things that was interesting about Donald Trump becoming president is that he's, in many ways, our least experienced president. He hasn't served an elected office at all. And we've seen a number of his appointees basically fall into disrepute or resignation. Scott Pruitt had a long series of allegations, scandal after scandal after scandal, and finally he decides to resign. So I think it's interesting moving forward. But the Trump administration has had difficulty, I think, finding really good and frankly untainted individuals to serve in the administration. But this is, I think the fifth resignation that we've seen in a very short time. All
right. We are now awaiting President Trump's motorcade. We're waiting to see which direction he will take to get into the Montana Expo Park. There's a couple of routes he could take. We haven't been told exactly, but we should know that very soon. We also have inside the Four Seasons Arena two of MTN's best. We have Shannon Newth from KRTV in Great Falls, and we also have MTN's Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison. Let's send it to those two now for an update on what's happening inside the arena. Hi, guys.
Hi, Tim. Shannon Newth alongside MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison. As people have come in, they've been given signs. There were rules as people came in. They couldn't bring their own signs in. We've seen Women for Trump signs. We've seen Trump Pence. We've seen Drain the Swamp signs. And behind us, there are the promises made, promises kept signage all around. Now, before President Trump arrives, various members of the GOP party here in Montana have been riling up the crowd, speaking about President Trump's agenda, and also having new lawmakers, Matt Rosendale, for example, going into the Senate. Mike, what have we heard so far?
Well, of course, as you mentioned, we've seen the statewide elected officials kind of warming up the crowd. We saw Attorney General Tim Fox, we saw Secretary of State Corey Stapleton, we saw the chairman of the State Republican Party, Deborah Lamb, and they're talking about the things that we expected them to talk about. The tax cut, the Supreme Court, the economy. And one thing I noticed, though, the thing that got probably the biggest cheer was when they talked about illegal immigration and building the border wall. That seemed to get the biggest cheer. And also we heard some derogatory comments about Senator John Tester, who's kind of the man with the target on his back. And he was roundly booed by the crowd. But I think the crowd was mostly waiting for the president. That's what they came to see.
And on Air Force One with the president, Senator Daines just returning from Russia, as well as Congressman Greg Gianforte. You had a chance to speak with both of them on their flight here. What did they have to say?
That's right. Both Representative Gianforte and Senator Daines got on the flight at Andrews Air Force Base in D.C. this morning, out here with the president. Senator Daines, of course, has just been in Russia with a delegation of GOP lawmakers, and he talked about them meeting with high-ranking Russian officials and Russian legislators, and he said they give a very good direct message to them about interference in our elections. Gianforte said he and Daines also talked a lot to President Trump about the state and the issues that he wants to emphasize they want him to talk about, including public lands and also natural resource development.
Okay, and some of the language we've heard in some of those speeches here at the arena so far has been similar to what we've heard at some of the rallies he's had in the last couple of weeks as far as building the wall. He wants to get more Republicans in the Senate where they have a slim majority at this time. We're expecting him to talk about potentially replacing a Supreme Court justice, and of course the news about Scott Pruitt just coming out, probably on his way here today.
That's right, and as we said before, none of these things are any surprise. What I'm kind of looking forward to tonight is, what's Trump going to say that we may not expect? Is he just going to talk about the same old, the GOP issues that he knows is going to fire up the crowd, and talk about Matt Rosendale, the Republican challenger Tester? But what new might we hear tonight? That's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing, or not.
Right, and of course we'll be continuing to monitor that and checking in with you throughout the coverage. President Trump is on his way here on the motorcade. Tim, back to you.
All right, thanks Shannon, thanks Mike. We are watching the president's motorcade as it makes its way towards Montana Expo Park, and here in the MTN studio in Great Falls with Dr. David Parker, MTN political analyst. Dr. Parker, we know that Greg Gianforte was on that flight of Air Force One, and he's in attendance today too. He too is going to be involved in a key race coming up here in November against someone who was kind of the upset special, I guess you could say, back in June for the primary, and that was Kathleen Williams, who kind of beat the field, came out of left field, I guess you could say, but she is going to challenge Gianforte. How do you see that race shaping up?
It'll be interesting to see how much the president talks about Kathleen Williams and Greg Gianforte in that particular race. That race was, surprise. We actually had an early poll that came out that actually showed Kathleen Williams, albeit within the margin of error, up. That was a bit of a surprise. In many respects, that race is also really important, and I'm not sure it's going to get as much attention as the Senate race. I think a lot of respects the Senate race is going to drown that out. But nevertheless, that race is Greg Gianforte's first re-election as well. So in one sense, he's at his most vulnerable now. In another way, however, House races tend to basically go a little bit more of the partisan swing in the state than the Senate races. So in some respects, Greg Gianforte, I still expect him to probably be in the catbird seat, and he's most likely to win that race, I suspect, at this moment in the fall. But we'll see what Kathleen Williams can put up in terms of fundraising numbers and how the polls play out as the election goes on.
All right. We are awaiting President Trump to get into Montana Expo Park. He is on his way, as you saw earlier. He has landed. Air Force One landed, and Shannon Newth and Mike Dennison are both in Montana Expo Park. They too are waiting to see the president make his entrance there and also hear what he has to say. And we're going to send it back to Shannon and Mike for more on what we can expect.
A lot of energy in the air here at the Four Seasons Arena. There's every once in a while you just hear people getting riled up and starting to cheer. We've seen Secret Service come up to the stage to check things out from there. We've heard from various GOP members in Montana. We also heard a Darby woman, Brooke DeVries, sing the national anthem here. Everyone's singing along with them as well. When we arrived, Mike, the line was near Buffalo Wild Wings. It was wrapping all the way around. It was quite a sight when we pulled up to see the presence, the energy of the people here.
And also, we look around, the arena is really not quite yet full. I mean, I was told about a half hour ago they're going to maybe open some additional doors to get more people in here. There's still a lot of people outside waiting to get in. The president's going to be here, what, 5-10 minutes from now? Pretty soon.
Right, he's on his way here now. Of course, people getting excited for his arrival, and we're expecting the president to talk about Matt Rosendale, talk about issues that he's continued to talk about during his various rallies, and what we'll be listening for is anything specific about Montana, Mike.
That's right, and you mentioned Matt Rosendale. He's expected to speak here tonight. I haven't seen him yet. I don't know if he's with the president or not. He's expected to say a few words. We just heard from, as you mentioned, the Attorney General and a few other Republican officials, and we'll see Daines and Gianforte come too. But Rosendale will have his moment in the sun as well.
Right, so we expect him to be a warm-up to President Trump, another warm-up to the president here in just a few minutes. We expect his arrival, and we also said that Senator Daines, along with Representative Greg Gianforte, were on Air Force One traveling with the president today. They're also, of course, expected to be here in just a matter of minutes. Tim, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Shannon. Thanks a lot, Mike. Again, we're expecting President Trump to enter the Four Seasons Arena here just any moment. And we, of course, will have the speech of President Trump in its entirety for you. And we'll also have it online on our websites after the speech is complete. We understand that the president is on his way, coming down the Northwest Bypass in Great Falls, and there you see the motorcade making its way again to the Montana Expo Park at the Cascade County Fairgrounds. A lot of people lining up along the side of the street there to get their shot at that picture of the president's motorcade coming through. And again, a lot of people outside protesting. We're hoping eventually to get more on that. Here comes the president's motorcade again. President Trump, looks like our picture has frozen just a little bit. President Trump, along with Congressman Greg Gianforte, Senator Steve Daines, in town to support the campaign of Republican U.S. Senate candidate Matt Rosendale. And I believe we're going to go to one of our reporters here in just a moment. Well, we're having some technical issues, but that's all right. So here comes the president again. Hot day in Great Falls, and it's certainly making for an interesting trip here. Trump won Montana by 20 points, 20 percentage points back in 2016. Do you think he's still as strong in Montana, and I guess particularly this area? It might be hard to say.
You know, it's hard to say, although I've seen some numbers saying the approval rating has gone down to, like, 50, under 51%. What's interesting for an unconventional president that Donald Trump is, he comes out of a business background, hadn't run for office before, and in many ways he's been a very different kind of president. This trip is very conventional. This is exactly what presidents do. It's called going public. What he's doing is coming into the state. He's trying to use the power of the bully pulpit, the power of the presidency, to basically get voters and supporters to basically support his policies, and also try to basically move them to support a candidate he supports, and that's Matt Rosendale. Going public is something presidents do. It's not always terribly effective, especially in midterm elections. So it'll be interesting to see if this is also the first of many trips. Will he come back again and do this again come October? We'll see.
And again, as we said, Greg Gianforte, he could possibly come and campaign on behalf of Greg Gianforte during that time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suspect if he did come back, he might not come to Great Falls, but may go to Billings and try to spread the love around a little bit and get the supporters excited. But basically what he's trying to do, and I suspect a strong part of his speech today will be about immigration, because that's an issue that fuels his base and his supporters and gets them excited. And he's got to keep that excitement up, because in a lot of ways these are voters that either haven't voted for Republicans before or haven't even showed up to vote before. So this is part of the process to see whether or not Trump can take his success in 16 and multiply it down ballot.
All right. As we said, there are quite a few protesters outside of the Montana Expo Park who are standing out there with their signs. Later on today, we'll hopefully hear from one of our reporters to learn more about what is going on with that protest. But there you can see a shot of them with the signs demonstrating peacefully, we understand. But a pretty good number of protesters outside Montana Expo Park to show their disapproval of President Donald Trump. All right, so we are awaiting President Trump to get inside Montana Expo Park. Again, he's scheduled to speak at about 4 o'clock at this Make America Great Again rally, and are expected to speak for close to an hour, we understand, for the president. You mentioned Ronald Reagan was here in 1982, and both Republicans, both members of the Republican Party, but there's obviously some differences between these two. Between Reagan and President Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ronald Reagan was known as a great communicator. Ronald Reagan was a fantastic speaker. Ronald Reagan, in many ways, was one of our more effective presidents, and coming in at a time where he basically established a new political moment in political history, where basically he established a new regime in American politics that we're still responding to. Donald Trump, at the other end of the kind of equation here, he's not the great speaker that Ronald Reagan was. He doesn't quite have the charm, and not only that, he's at a moment where the Republican Party, in many respects, is trying to find itself. What is it? What is the Republican Party? Ronald Reagan created the modern Republican Party. In many ways, Donald Trump is the end of the Reagan era. The question is, today, is the Republican Party about taxes? Is it about less regulation? Is it about immigration? What is it? Well, Ronald Reagan, as a president, signed immigration reform and in compromise with Democrats in Congress. And Donald Trump, in many respects, has not done that. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of the flavor of what he's going to talk about today and how he's going to talk about it.
All right. Shannon Newth and MTN political reporter Mike Dennison standing inside the Montana Expo Park, and we're going to send it back to them for more on what's happening.
All right, Tim, we're hearing that there are still hundreds of people lined up outside, not able to get in at this point. Earlier, when Corey Stapleton was speaking to the crowd, he was trying to get an assessment of where everyone was from. We did hear the loudest cheers of representation from Great Falls, the High Line, Eastern Montana, also showing up representation, and of course people from Western Montana as well. So a lot of locals, a lot of Great Falls residents here for the rally, whether they are supporters of Trump or here for the historic value of seeing a sitting president in Great Falls, Montana. He is on his way here right now. Senator Daines on Air Force One with President Trump earlier today. Chief political reporter Mike Dennison spoke with Senator Daines on Air Force One. He is just returning from Russia, and Mike, it will be interesting to hear if the president references Daines' recent trip to Russia at all.
It will be. I spoke with Senator Daines. It was a delegation of about 6 or 7 all Republican lawmakers who flew into first Helsinki, Finland, where the president's going to meet with Vladimir Putin in about 10, 11 days from now in a summit. And they went on and talked to officials with the top foreign minister with Russia. And he said they asked him, they said, we don't want you interfering in our elections this year or in the future. They asked about some other foreign policy things. And one thing they said was interesting was, why were there no Democrats? I asked why no Democrats. They said that they wanted to make the point forcefully with Republican lawmakers about the elections, so it would not be seen as a partisan issue.
Okay, and of course President Trump would like to see Senator Matt Rosendale be the next senator. Matt Rosendale have that title of senator. He's here not only to continue his rally to make America great again, but also to campaign for Matt Rosendale to try to offset incumbent Senator Jon Tester. We're expecting Matt Rosendale, the man who, of course,
the state auditor,
President Trump would like to see as the next senator, state auditor Matt Rosendale. We're expecting him to come up and speak. What do you expect to hear from Matt Rosendale?
Well, I don't know if he's going to introduce the president or not, but I think Mr. Rosendale is going to make a few remarks about his campaign, and I think he's going to repeat many of the things he's already heard about Tester not supporting the president on key votes such as repealing Obamacare, voting against the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch for the U.S. Supreme Court, things like that. And although Tester has supported the president on some things, we did an analysis recently and it showed that he had supported the president on about 50-60% of the time, but on a lot of these big key issues he has not.
Okay. So of course we'll continue to watch to see if Matt Rosendale will speak, and the president is just moments away from arriving here at Montana Expo Park. Again, we're hearing hundreds of people still outside of the Expo Park who were hoping to get in to see President Trump here in Great Falls, Montana. We'll continue to watch and fill you in. Tim?
All right, Shannon. Another name, Dr. Parker, that we're wondering if we might hear today is that of Ronnie Jackson, who was the president's nominee for the Secretary of the VA, and Senator Tester made public some allegations that raised some red flags and eventually led to the Jackson withdrawing his name, and that really kind of set the president off and really kind of started a battle between these two. Yeah,
the president was terribly upset at Senator Tester going public with a lot of the information that they were doing when they're vetting the nomination. Now, it's interesting to note that the Republican chair of that committee,
David, we need to interrupt you. We're going to hear now from Donald Trump Jr., who is at the podium.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Montana. Wow. Okay, you thought it was my dad, didn't you? That's what. That Junior gets him every time, right? They thought it was Junior. Well, thank you very much, guys. It's great to be back. I feel like I was just here 2 weeks ago headlining this in Billings. It's funny. I get asked to do a lot of the political events, but when they ask, will you go out to Montana, how do you say no? All right? But this is the first time I haven't been able to turn it into like a full weekend excursion, so that's a bit of a disaster. This is just this, okay? But you guys make me feel really welcome, so it's awesome. I've been coming here for a long time, so this state means a lot to me. I'm, as many of you probably know, big shooter, big hunter, big fisherman. That's why I also feel ridiculous in this suit, but we're just gonna do it, okay? So I've been coming out here since I first got a car. I used to take a month off every summer. I would drive out west, live at the back of my truck, fish all the rivers in the west, and really got to know the state. And the reason I got into Montana politics was because I met your Senator Steve Daines in elk camp. I was in elk camp. I brought my little son out. This was Thanksgiving a couple years ago, my 6-year-old at the time. We were doing a good little family father-son trip and ran into Steve. And we started talking. What do you think? Did I shoot one? Come on, man. Come on. Unlike Jon Tester, who only started buying hunting tags when the GOP called him out for not being a hunter. You know that he went 15 years without a hunting license and he pretends to be like he's a hunter, right? He went 15 years until they called him out for it. That's why we call him Two-Faced Tester. You can't say you're one thing, you can't show up in blaze orange but haven't bought a hunting license in 15 years. That doesn't work in Montana, right? You can maybe make that work in New York City, but that's about it. Not this side of the Mississippi. So I was out in hunting camp with Steve Daines, and we got this great friendship going, and you know, so many of the great outdoor experiences that I've been able to have on the rivers here, in the woods, in the mountains, you know, with my son, and I got to know this guy, and that's the way you get to really know someone, not in a boardroom, not across the table at a negotiation, not even in politics, but sharing time around a campfire in hunting camp, you really get to know someone. And I got to know Steve, and when then Greg Gianforte, your great congressman, was running, they said, Don, would you come out to Montana? I'm saying, I'm a guy from New York City. I'm not sure if I fly in Montana. How's that gonna work? Turns out it worked really well. We had a great time. We really moved the needle. We got to do a little bit of shooting. We even went out doing some prairie dogging. By the time the New York Times got a hold of it, we were shooting pregnant dogs. Not prairie dogs, pregnant dogs. So that was your fake news media. This was the headline. I'm saying, I don't remember doing that. But we had a good time. You know what? They're here. Come on. Steve, Greg, get up here. These guys are the real deal. I've gotten to know them, again, in hunting camp, having a good time. Why don't you say something, okay? He can maybe vouch for some of my New York cred, okay?
Let me tell you something. Donald Trump Jr. is a heck of a shot. You don't want to get into shooting on this guy. He is a great shot. But I tell you what, every morning I wake up and I say, thank God Hillary Clinton is not president of the United States. And then there's another thing to say thanks for. Thank God Donald J. Trump is. So I want to thank you, Don, for making the trip out here today. I want to thank you for bringing your dad along. And we had a great flight out with the president, seeing the beautiful landscapes of Montana as we landed up at the airport just a few minutes ago. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for making America great again.
Well, while we have it, Greg, come on, you got to say a couple words also.
Yeah. Thanks, Don. Hello, Montana! Well, I got really clear marching orders from you all. That was to protect our precious way of life and drain the swamp. I am proud to serve with this great president, but we got some more work to do. His leadership, this president, has given this country hope again. And we are going to make America great again. I am honored to serve as your only voice back in the House. God bless you and God bless this country.
Well, thank you guys. So, why are we here? We're here because we're going to make America great again. When you look at what's going on in this country right now, we're winning for the first time in a long time. The people of Montana, they got it. They saw it in 2016. They saw what was going on. They had heard the lies that had been fed time and time again by our representatives in D.C., and they voted to put someone in there who was actually going to take on that system. Someone who was actually going to fight for America. Someone who was actually going to put America first. Now, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that we live in a time where talking about putting Americans first is like a bad thing, right? I mean, I feel stupid when I turn on the TV and I'm listening to these people. People in far-off lands who hate our guts. They hate our freedoms. They hate our religion. They hate everything about us. These people are more concerned about their feelings, that's a big deal these days, their feelings than they are about the safety and well-being of our kids and grandkids. And that doesn't work. When I look at the Democratic platform, I say, I don't know, I'm looking at the numbers. I see what's going on. I see all-time low unemployment, the greatest job reports ever. When the New York Times says, we don't have the words to describe how good these job numbers are, trust me, that was not easy for them to write. They didn't like it, not one little bit. I'm saying, what is the other side's platform? Hate is not a platform. Hate doesn't put food on the table. Hate doesn't educate your kids. Hate doesn't keep you safe. All of the things that we're doing, I can't think of a single measurement where we aren't better off today than we were 18 months ago. And yet, they run on this platform. Everything Trump does is terrible. If Donald Trump came out in favor of oxygen, the Democrats would say, we are against it. Maybe a good tactic. I'm just kidding, because they'll say I'm trying to kill people. But this is where we've gotten, okay? When I look at John Tester in this race, he says all the things he voted for Trump on. You're right, take full-page ads. But wait a minute, where was he on Justice Gorsuch? Where was he on sanctuary cities? Do you want Montana to be a sanctuary state? And most importantly, the big one, where was he on tax reform? Okay? You know where he was? He was with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. He was nowhere to be found. The big one, the one that puts money in your pockets, the one that allows you to take care of family, the one that put food on the table. He wasn't there for that one, and he said it was one of the expletive worst bills ever put before the Senate. Think about that. The bill that is allowing all these companies to bring back this money, that is paying bonuses to all their employees, that is employing tens of thousands of people, all-time low job numbers. All those positive things, because of this bill, he was against it. Remember that, because when all this California money, when all this New York money starts pouring into this race to feed his campaign and those lies, remember where he was. Remember to stay motivated, because the one thing is, I see a lot of Trump people in this room. But you got to stay into it. You got to have the same enthusiasm for all of these guys, and for Rosendale, and for everyone that you had for Donald Trump, because just because Donald Trump isn't on the ticket in 2018 doesn't mean that everything he has accomplished is not on the ticket. The other side wants to get rid of it all. You have to stay in this fight. You have to stay motivated. You have to get your friends out there, and you have to turn up to vote in November. That's going to make the difference. That's going to be everything, okay? I'm going to be coming a lot out here in this fall, helping all of these guys. I would rather be doing it with a bow or a fly rod, but we'll do that in November after everything, okay? But we're going to be out there fighting for Montana. We're going to do what we've always said we're going to do. And by the way, we're also going to be fighting for public lands, okay? That's one of those things. They come out there and they hit us. Trump's selling them off. I said, we added. What are you talking about? But that's their big soundbite for the outdoorsman. You know, the reality isn't true, but no one's going to look beyond that, okay? Remember what we're doing. Look at the policies. Don't just buy everything that you read, okay? Advertising can buy a lot and it can sell a lot of garbage. Very true. There's a lot of it these days, man. That's the reality. Think of the amount of winning we could have if you actually had a little cooperation with the media. If they were half as friendly to us, we don't even need all of the friendly that they were for our predecessor, which was he could do no wrong. If they were a tenth as friendly to us as they were to him, you got rid of the nonsense, you got rid of the noise, just think of how much more you could do. That's why you're so important. That's why Montana is relevant right now. That's what these guys are fighting for every day. And that's what Matt Rosendale is going to be fighting for come November. I want you to remember that. I want you to remember what was in your hearts in November in 2016. Keep that going. Keep that fight. Keep that spirit. Get out there. Bring your friends. Make sure you send the message to Washington, D.C. that you want DJT to continue what he's doing. This is what's going to help our kids, our grandkids, and as the father of 5 young kids, I want to leave an America that we know, that we've gotten used to, because the one I see on TV these days, it's a foreign country. Okay? Remember it. Keep that spirit and that fight in your heart. And thank you very much for having us out here and being so welcoming. It's awesome to be here. Thank you very much, Montana. Thank you.
Inside the Four Seasons Arena, that is Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, who's been to Montana many times, both to enjoy the great outdoors as well as campaign for Greg Gianforte. And Dr. Parker, what did you think of the comments there by Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, it's pretty standard fare for what we've heard before. What I found really interesting about that was, number one, very aggressive against Jon Tester. No punches were pulled. That is very different, for example, from Ronald Reagan. It'll be interesting to see if the president continues that aggressiveness in his remarks. The second thing that was very interesting, basically suggesting that, yeah, that Tester supported the president on these bills, but not on these issues that matter. Again, this is very similar to what we saw in 2012, an effort to basically nationalize the election. In 2012, the issue was Obamacare. And this election, it's going to be the Supreme Court open seat with Kennedy and the appointment that Donald Trump makes on the tax cut. Interesting what was absent. No discussion of tariffs. And the fact that tariffs are actually causing problem in the resource economy here in Montana, specifically in eastern Montana, with farmers and ranchers. So that was very interesting. Also interesting that the shout out to public lands. What I found even more fascinating, from a perspective of somebody who watches campaigns, is here we have a guy from New York basically trying to suggest that Jon Tester isn't a Montanan and he doesn't hunt and he doesn't do all these other things. So that was a little weird, right? To see someone from New York basically try to out-Montana the Montanan Jon Tester.
All right. Well, Mike Dennison, our MTN chief political reporter, standing by with Shannon Newth. They are inside the Four Seasons Arena at Montana Expo Park, and we're going to send it to them now to get their thoughts on what Donald Trump Jr. had to say. Guys?
Donald Trump Jr., Representative Greg Gianforte, and Senator Steve Daines were all just up on stage. They all spoke to the crowd for just a few minutes, all talking about Montana. They talked about public lands. At one point, Donald Trump Jr. asked the crowd, do you want Montana to be a sanctuary state? There was an overwhelming no and boo coming from the crowd. We heard him talk about things that we may anticipate President Trump to build upon as we're talking about Montana, Mike.
Well, I think that we got a real flavor of what the speak is going to be like. If Donald Trump Jr. speaks any indication that this is going to be a full-on campaign rally, they're going to go after Senator Tester. They're going to talk about the issues that, talk about their accomplishments. And also we got a little bit of flavor of going after the media as well, saying that if the media gave us just 1/10 of the support they gave presumably President Obama, maybe we get more things done. And I heard that and I thought, well, they do control both houses of Congress, so I think they have the power to get things done with or without the media.
All right, and again, Donald Trump Jr., along with Representative Gianforte, Steve Daines, just left the stage here a few moments ago. We're anticipating the president to come on stage and speak here any moment. It's hard to describe to people who aren't here how loud it is in here right now. I'm assuming people can hear a little bit of that, but not only the music, but when they rile up the crowd, when they get the support of the crowd, it's very loud. Signs are up, people are cheering. Mike, it's almost like we described it a little bit like a rock concert feel of sorts because of how excited people are and the noise level in here.
Well, absolutely, that's kind of the feeling I got. It is kind of a rock concert atmosphere, and we heard the big cheers for Donald Trump Jr. and for Senator Daines and Gianforte. I think when the president gets here, it's going to be about 2 or 3 times as loud.
Tim will be continuing to be here. The president expected to come onto that stage here any minute now. Back to you.
All right, thanks Shannon, thanks Mike. Donald Trump Jr. again in Montana. As we said, he's been here quite a few times, and Steve Daines will be most likely running for re-election in 2020, and who knows, maybe Donald Trump Jr. will be back in the state at that time, and maybe Donald Trump, President Trump, might be back at that time too.
Well, that re-election in 2020 is really critical for Senator Daines. Senator Daines, of course, got 59%, I think it was 59% of the vote when he first ran for the U.S. Senate. Of course, he ran against Amanda Curtis, who was a last-minute add-in candidate because John Walsh resigned, having plagiarized his master's thesis. It's kind of like the perfect moment to run for re-election when you're running against a candidate who actually wasn't the original nominee. So that race is going to be really important. But the big question I have is, who is the Democrat going to run against Steve Daines? It's unclear. Who's in the bench that could take on that particular challenge?
Have you heard any possible names tossed about out there?
Well, I know one person is going to be out of a job in 2020, and that's Steve Bullock.
That's right.
But I hear all signs seem to be that he's fairly serious about this presidential run. After that, it's unclear. You could maybe look at some of the folks that ran for the House seat. If Kathleen Williams doesn't win the House seat, maybe she would be a person that could run, or somebody like John Heenan or Grant Keir. Any of those candidates would be some obvious choices. But after that, it's not really clear who might be an obvious choice other than Steve Bullock.
You could see, of course, obviously from Shannon and Mike, a big crowd inside and a big crowd outside. A lot of people waiting outside. We are going to send it outside of the Montana Expo Park. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian is standing by, and he has more on the protesters that are in attendance today at the rally. Jonathan?
Thanks a lot, Tim. Yes, we're out here in front of the Expo. We're in front of the Expo Park here, and there are quite a few protesters here. It looks like somewhere at least 200, I would say.
Okay.
They've gathered here. This is an area set aside for the protest area, and it were set aside here.
We could hear Jonathan. We couldn't quite see him quite well. We hope to talk to him later at some point. There he is, President Donald J. Trump waving to the crowd. This is the moment that these thousands of people have been waiting for, snapping those pictures and talking to the president. 6,600 people, I think, was the estimate of what the Montana Expo Park will hold, and they are all there with a chance at history to see the president. It's pretty rare, obviously, that a president will come to Montana, but this, as we said, a very key election year. Even though it is a midterm, it's a big one for Matt Rosendale, the Republican candidate, hoping to unseat Senator John Tester, who is seeking a third term in the U.S. Senate. President Trump approaching the podium now, and we are going to send it inside and hear from President Donald J. Trump.
There ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Well, thank you, Montana. What a place. What a place. What a place. And it's great to be here tonight with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. Thank you. And outside, you probably know what's going on. There are thousands and thousands of people. And we've decided from now on we're going to put up screens and loudspeakers so people can stay around. Because this happens all the time. I said to my people, why didn't you get a larger arena? We can't, right? We can't. But those are great people outside, and I apologize, but there are thousands of them. And yeah, we really love them. But you people know real estate better. You know real estate better. So it's pretty good stuff. And you're inside, and I'm inside, and we love each other, and it's going to stay that way. So we are thrilled to be joined by some great people. You just heard Steve Daines. He has been so helpful. He has been so helpful in Washington on the tax cuts and everything else. And I want to thank Steve and his family. They have been incredible for me in Washington. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. And Steve and I are running again. You know, 2020, he comes up. So we're running together, Steve. And I want to thank Greg Gianforte. He's a member of Congress who has been 100% with us. Incredible success story. A lot of people don't know that, but Greg is an incredible success and did a really good job. And then he said he wants to give back. And Greg, you have been fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Montana Attorney General Tim Fox. Thank you, Tim. Secretary of State Corey Stapleton. Thank you, Corey. Montana Republican Party Chairwoman Deborah Lamb. Superintendent of Public Instructions Elsie Arnson. And finally, the person that we are here for tonight, a very special person, ran an incredible primary, wouldn't you say? Incredible? Anytime you win, it's incredible. But he did, against a very tough and good competition. And hey, he's going to be your next senator from the incredible state of Montana. Matt Rosendale. Come up, Matt. Come up, Matt.
Hello, Montana. Do we have an incredible president or what? We actually have a president who fights every single day for the people across this great nation. And here at home, he's fighting for our military men and women serving right here at Malmstrom Air Force Base and across the country. And for all our veterans and for our seniors. He's fighting for our folks working in the timber industry and our energy production. He's fighting for our hard-working farmers and ranchers across the entire state. And you know he's fighting for our miners down in Butte. And those coal workers in Colstrip who produce that beautiful, clean coal. He's also fighting for everyone across our state who feels their voice isn't being heard, including the unborn. And I will be that voice for you if you elect me to the United States Senate. And I will fight for you every day because I mean business about standing with President Trump to make America great again. Because what's good for America is great for Montana. Today, I ask for your vote so that I can help President Trump continue his good work. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, Montana. May God bless each and every one of you and the great United States of America.
Thank you very much. That was great. This is a really good man. This is a man that loves the people of Montana, loves the people of this country. It's time to retire liberal Democrat Jon Tester. And you're going to get on your side a real Montana fighter. You see it. You've been watching for the last 6 months. He is a tough cookie. He's a fighter. He's going to fight for you, Matt Rosendale. So Jon Tester says one thing when he's in Montana, but I will tell you, I'm testament to it. He does the exact opposite when he goes to Washington. A vote for Jon Tester is a vote for Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the new leader of the Democrat Party, Maxine Waters. Where have they gone? Jon Tester voted no on repealing Obamacare. And even though we got a little surprise vote that evening, you all remember that evening, somebody came in with a thumbs down after campaigning for years that he was going to repeal and replace, but that's okay, because we, for the most part, have already done it, and we have great health care coming out, and it just came out 2 weeks ago, and we got rid of the individual mandate and lots of other things. Sometimes we have to do it the hard way, but that's okay too. Jon Tester voted no on tax cuts for Montana families. He voted no on cutting the estate tax or the death tax for your farms, your farmers, and your small businesses. Think of that one. Think of that one. But you got it anyway because we got it passed. So on your farms, for the most part, you will have no estate tax or death tax to pay. You can leave your farm, you can leave your small business to your children or whoever you want to leave them. Don't always leave them to the children. If the children aren't good children, don't leave them to somebody else. But you have no tax to pay. Pretty good, right? Nobody thought that was going to happen. Tester voted against it. Jon Tester voted no on legislation to stop late-term abortions. You wouldn't think he'd play very well out here. How did he get elected? I mean, I know a lot of people from Montana. You got to explain that one to me. How did he get elected? All right. You can right your wrong in November, okay? You can right your wrong. Matt Rosendale. Jon Tester voted no on Kate's Law. You know what Kate's Law is? That's legislation named for Kate Steinle, who was gunned down by a 5-time deported illegal immigrant. You deserve a senator who doesn't just talk like he's from Montana. You deserve a senator who actually votes like he's from Montana. Tester even voted no on enhanced vetting for refugees from terror-stricken countries. You believe this one? What's going on with that? The Democrats want open borders, which means lots of crime. We want tough, strong, powerful borders, and we want no crime, and we're going to protect ICE. We protect ICE. They protect us, and we protect them. They protect us, and we protect them. You saw that clown yesterday on the Statue of Liberty? You see the guys that went up there? I wouldn't have done it. I would have said, let's get some nets and let's wait till she comes down. Just get some nets, really. You see those guys, the bravery of doing that? What a group. We protect ICE and our Border Patrol and our law enforcement and our fire department but we protect our people. John Tester opposed our travel ban to keep America safe, which, by the way, I'm proud to report that last week, the Supreme Court of the United States just upheld the Trump travel ban. And they gave us the authority to protect our nation, keep our nation safe, to keep it safe. As you know, there's now a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And if you turn in Monday at 9 o'clock, I think you're going to be extremely happy with the selection, right? And they're all great. They're all great. And I want to thank Justice Kennedy for his lifetime of truly distinguished service. And he had confidence in me. He left because he said, you're going to pick somebody great. And so nice. So nice. Great man, a great gentleman. John Tester voted against Neil Gorsuch, the incredible justice who supports fully our Constitution. That's a hard one to vote against, isn't it? Tester opposed many of our amazing judges, and yet I see John Tester saying such nice things about me. I say, yeah, but he never votes for me. He never votes. And it's all, I'd rather have him say bad about me, but vote, right? Yet John Tester voted for liberal Obama judges who tried to take away your Second Amendment, tried to take it away. Because Tester doesn't share your values. John Tester showed his true colors with his shameful, dishonest attacks on a great man, a friend of mine, a man that I said, why don't you run the VA? You'd be great. Navy Admiral Ronnie Jackson. And a report just came out, and I should have brought it because I would have read it, but it's long but beautiful for Ronnie Jackson. Secret Service are all over the place, and they wrote a report that what he said was so false and so untrue. It never happened. And they could have ruined a lesser man. But Dr. Jackson, I don't know, should I call him Admiral or Doctor? I'll call him both, Doctor/Admiral. He's a doctor, he's an admiral. His son is a top student at Annapolis, graduating this year. Incredible wife, incredible family. You know, I feel guilty. I feel guilty. Admiral Jackson was getting ready to leave service, and he served many years admirably, not a blemish, perfect, beautiful person. A lot of you know exactly. He actually said I was healthy. You know, he was the one. When the fake news started saying, oh, why isn't Trump giving the physical? Why? Dr. Jackson and his staff, they went out, they gave me a physical. That was a physical. And when they said I'm very healthy, the news was devastated. They were devastated. They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear that. But he's a great family man, and I said to him, I feel guilty. I said, hey, Doc, why don't you run the VA? You're a leader, you're an admiral, people admire you. He's an admired guy, or I wouldn't have done it. Well, sir, I wasn't really thinking of that. I say, Doc, you'll be great. Go ahead and do it. Sir, whatever your order, I will do. You know, he's like, even if he didn't want to do it, he said that to me. In fact, your great First Lady said to me that same day, well, did he want to do it? I said, I really don't know. He said he'd do it. But then when I thought about it, I don't know. But he said, if you ask, I will do it. But he didn't really want to do it. So I sort of feel guilty about this whole thing. Because what happened is he said, sir, if you would like me to do it, I'll do it. Wasn't what he had in mind. I put him into the world of politics. How vicious is the world? But John Tester said things about him that were horrible and that weren't true. And that's probably why I'm here, because I won Montana by so many points, I don't have to come here. I don't have to. You know, a lot of people from states where we have these crazy big leads, we had 42 and 44. We won by 44 points over a Democrat. Over a Democrat. We won by 44 points over a Democrat. Now it was crooked Hillary, but still she's a Democrat. And, yeah, no, she gets special treatment. Sorry. She gets special treatment under the Justice Department. Sorry. She gets special treatment under the Justice Department. Anybody else in America? How about that FBI agent? How about that guy? You think he liked me? You think he liked me? You think there was just a little bias there? A little bias? Oh, did we catch them in the act? It's a rigged deal, folks. It's a rigged deal. I used to say it. It's a rigged deal. It's a disgrace. And we go away on Monday. We appoint and go away, and I'll see lots of people. I'll see NATO, and I'm going to tell NATO, you got to start paying your bills. The United States is not going to take care of everything. We're paying for anywhere from 70 to 90% to protect Europe, and that's fine. Of course, they kill us on trade. They kill us on other things. They make it impossible to do business in Europe, yet they come in and they sell their Mercedes and their BMWs to us. So we have $151 billion in trade deficits with the EU. And on top of that, they kill us with NATO. They kill us. So we pay 4% of a huge GDP, which got a lot bigger since I became your president. And Germany, which is the biggest country of the EU, European Union, Germany pays 1%. 1%. And I said, you know, Angela, I can't guarantee it, but we're protecting you, and it means a lot more to you than protecting us, because I don't know how much protection we get by protecting you. And then they go out and they make a gas deal, oil and gas from Russia, where they pay billions and billions of dollars to Russia, okay? So they want to protect against Russia, yet they pay billions of dollars to Russia, and we're the schmucks that are paying for the whole thing. So then, and by the way, I have to say this. Since I came, which is a year and a half, almost $33 billion more is projected to be paid by those NATO nations, but it's not enough. Do they ever tell you that? No. But I will tell you, the Secretary General, Stoltenberg, is Trump's biggest fan. He said, those NATO nations are all going like this, less money, why not? And when you came in and you started talking, it went like a rocket ship. It went just like a rocket ship. So anytime I suggest anything, so we've gotten 33 billion, it's going to be a lot more money than that. But if then they say, oh, let's see, he's angry at NATO. I guess, yeah, he loves Russia. I love Russia. I will say this, I'm meeting with President Putin next week, and getting along, let me tell you, getting along with Russia and getting along with China and getting along with other countries is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I would say for stupid people or for political people, because they're not stupid, All they are is good at obstruction, good at resisting. You know, the whole thing is resist, right? But every time it comes up, I will say this. I'm going to have to ask him this question. How bad has it been since Trump has been in? Take a look at what's happened. Take a look at, we've just increased our military spending. We're at $700 billion. We've become a nation that is exporting energy for the first time. We're exporting energy. So many things. And you look at all the money that NATO's getting now. They're probably saying in Russia, you know, if we did like this guy, we made a big mistake. We'd rather have crooked Hillary Clinton. I think they would much rather have Hillary. But getting along with other countries, and you're talking nuclear powers, in all fairness, getting along is really a nice thing. It's a smart thing. We're going to beat everybody. We have the greatest military we have now. Look, we have now, and hopefully we'll never have to use it. You know, the only way you're never going to have to use it, if it's so powerful, so good, so strong, that nobody wants to play games. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We'll never have to use it. And then, of course, we have North Korea, where, do you notice, 8 months? So during the Obama administration, it seemed like a missile a week. I mean, a lot of missiles going up, a lot of rockets going up, a lot of nuclear testing. They thought there was an earthquake the size of something they've never tested before. They said, where is it? Oh, it's in Korea someplace. They said, why don't you check nuclear weapons? It was a nuclear weapon, all right? So since the rhetoric stopped, you know, we had very tough rhetoric. Would you say that was a little tough, right? So remember, they said, he's too tough. He's going to cause a war. It's too tough. Now they say, he's too nice. He's too nice. He's too nice. I got along very well with Chairman Kim. I got along very well. That's a good thing that I got along well. Now, what hasn't happened in 8 months? In 8 months, first of all, we got our prisoners back before I even went, right? And I didn't pay $1.8 billion, by the way, in cash. We didn't pay 1.8, right? We paid slightly less than 1.8. We paid nothing. And yet, it was a very smart deal for North Korea. Goodwill is very important. But we signed a wonderful paper saying they're going to denuclearize their whole thing. It's going to all happen. But now, you know, you're back. I was back, I think, 6 days. Why hasn't it started? Why? I mean, these guys, Obama was very close to going to war. You have 30 million people in Seoul. It's 30 miles off the border. And that's a tough border. Thousands of cannons, they call them. These are big, big guns. I'm not even talking about nuclear. You could have lost 30, 40, 50 million people. You could have had a war like you haven't had in a long time. And guess what you have now? 8 months, no nuclear testing, no missiles, no anything. Mike Pompeo is over there right now. And they say, he, meaning me, these guys, the crooked press, they are so dishonest. They are so dishonest. Fake news. They're fake news media. So what do they say all the time? Because I didn't give anything up. What do they say all the time? They say, he went there. I went there. I went to Singapore. We had a meeting. By agreeing to meet, you know, they can't come up with anything else. Like, I didn't give like Clinton and like Obama would have. You know, Obama couldn't meet. Now they say, well, Obama couldn't meet. They wouldn't see him. So I didn't have, like Clinton, where they gave him billions and billions of dollars and got nothing, okay? So they couldn't find anything. So what do? They say he met. I met. That's what we lost, folks. He met. Now, by the way, Obama would have loved to have met. They wouldn't see him. They wouldn't see him. One of the first questions I asked when I was over there, they wouldn't see him. So I met. That's how We got beaten. Now they're saying it with Putin. Well, Putin is highly prepared. And Trump, will he be prepared for the meeting? Trust me, we'll do just fine. We'll do just fine. Fake news, bad people. Bad people. Will he be prepared? Will he be prepared? And I might even end up having a good relationship, but they're going, will President Trump be prepared? You know, President Putin is KGB and this and that. You know what? Putin's fine. He's fine. We're all fine. We're people. Will I be prepared? Totally prepared. I've been preparing for this stuff my whole life. They don't say that. They don't say that. And you really do, and I'll tell you what, because I see it, I see the way they write. They're so damn dishonest. And I don't mean all of them, because some of the finest people I know are journalists, really. Hard to believe when I say that. I hate to say it, but I have to say. But 75% of those people are downright dishonest. Downright dishonest. They're fake. They're fake. They quote sources. A source within the Trump organization said. A source. They don't have a source. They never use names anymore. You know, in the old days, you have to use names. Jim Smith said that Donald Trump is a bad guy. They don't do that anymore. They say a source within the administration. They make the sources up. They don't exist in many cases. Anytime you say, you know, I saw one of them said 15 anonymous sources. I don't have 15 people in the White House. I mean, forget it. 15 anonymous sources have said all sorts of stuff. These are really bad people. But here's the bottom line. We're here. How the hell did we get here? Really? How did we get here? How did we get here? So, if you look at John Tester, he signed up for the Democrats' radical immigration agenda, which is let them come in, and we believe, they say, in sanctuary cities where they house the criminals and others. We believe in strong borders and no crime. It's very simple. Strong borders. We believe in coming into this country legally. We believe in coming in legally. We believe in the merit system. So when you have a business and somebody comes in, and honestly, hate to tell you this, got to go with it. We are doing so well. So many businesses are moving back to this country. So many car companies are coming back into Michigan and to Ohio and to Pennsylvania and to North and South Carolina. We need people. We don't have the workers anymore. And by the way, that's something that's unique. You haven't heard that for a long time. Wages are going up, right? But we need people. But who do we need? We need people that come in under the merit system. Under the merit system. A vote for the Democrats in November is a vote to let MS-13 run wild in our communities. To let drugs pour into our cities, and to take jobs and benefits away from our hardworking Americans, and we're not letting it happen. Democrats want anarchy. They really do. And they don't know who they're playing with, folks. I said it the other day, yes, she is a low IQ individual, Maxine Waters. I said it the other day. I mean, honestly, she's somewhere in the mid-60s, I believe that. He will be impeached. I will impeach him. Even the Democrats are saying, how are you saying that? They don't want to use that word because it gets the Republicans out to vote. They say, stay away from that word. Especially since he's done nothing wrong. That helps also, right? There's no collusion. No collusion. After spending $22 million, it's awfully tough. And the House just left and they said there's no collusion. Can you imagine this? It's all a ruse. This was an excuse for the Democrats who lost an election, who actually got their ass kicked 306. 306 to 223. That's a pretty good shellacking. 306. Hey, we won states. Take Wisconsin. I just left Wisconsin. So we won. In fact, they're building. Friends of mine, Foxconn, they make the Apple laptops and iPhones. They're incredible. They are going to spend like $11 billion in this. It's going to be about a $15 billion plant. There will be nothing like it in this country. And frankly, outside of China, there will be nothing like it. But by the time it's finished, it'll top anything in China also. It's incredible. It's incredible. But $15 billion, 15,000 jobs, Wisconsin. But think of Wisconsin. Reagan had his big win. He won every state except one, the great state of Wisconsin. I won Wisconsin. First time since Dwight Eisenhower in 1952. And we won Michigan. And we won Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and Florida. We ran up that East Coast. You had to run up that East Coast. Winning the Electoral College is very tough for a Republican. Much tougher than the so-called popular vote, where people vote 4 times, you know. Much tougher. Much, much tougher. We had a great victory, but think of it, not since Dwight Eisenhower, 1952. What an evening. Was that one of the great evenings? Was that one of the great evenings? And I always say, because the ratings that they're getting are beyond belief. You know, the New York Times was ready to fold. It was going to close, and then I came along, unfortunately, and they sell. But don't worry, because ultimately, when I leave in 7 years from now, of course, they'll fold. They will fold. No, when you see the Times, how dishonest they are, when you see the Washington Post, how totally dishonest, when we leave, and I actually say this, they are all doing numbers that they've never done. When I announce they are going to endorse me, because if I lose, should I lose, or if I don't run, they're out of business. Who's going to cover? They're going to cover Bernie? Hey, they're going to cover like Sleepy Joe Biden? They're going to cover Pocahontas? Who was... Think of it. Think of it. She of the great tribal heritage. What tribe is it? Let me think about that one. Meantime, she's based her life on being a minority. Pocahontas. They always want me to apologize for saying it. And I hereby, oh no, I want to apologize. I'll use tonight. Pocahontas, I apologize to you. I apologize. To you, I apologize. To the fake Pocahontas, I won't apologize. No, it's causing her problems. You know, that name's causing, because now even the liberals are saying, take a test. Take a test. You know, I tell you, I shouldn't tell you, because I like not to give away secrets, but this one. Let's say I'm debating Pocahontas, right? I promise you I'll do this. I will take, you know those little kits they sell on television for $2? Learn your heritage. Guy says, I was born in Scotland. It turns out he was born in Puerto Rico, and that's okay. It's good. You know, guy says, I was born in Germany. Well, he wasn't born in Germany. He was born someplace else. I'm going to get one of those little kits. And in the middle of the debate, when she proclaims that she's of Indian heritage because her mother said she has high cheekbones. That's her only evidence, that her mother said she had high cheekbones. We will take that little kit and say, but we have to do it gently. Because we're in the Me Too generation, so we have to be very gentle. And we will very gently take that kit, and we will slowly toss it, hoping it doesn't hit her and injure her arm, even though it only weighs probably 2 ounces. And we will say, I will give you $1 million to your favorite charity, paid for by Trump, if you take the test and it shows you're an Indian, you know. And let's see what she does, right? I have a feeling she will say no, but we'll hold that for the debates. Do me a favor, keep it within this room, because I don't want to give away any secrets. And the press is very honorable. They won't. Please don't tell her what I just said. Democrats are launching outrageous attacks against our incredible law enforcement and our ICE and Border Patrol. The new platform of the Democrat Party, and by the way, I call it the Democrat Party. It sounds better rhetorically. You know, I wrote bestsellers. I guess I speak well. You know, we turned away thousands of people. They never say I'm a great speaker. Why the hell do so many people come? Why does... I don't think it's true. Why do they come? Why? Why, oh, why do they come? Gotta be something. I guess they like my policy. Maybe you like policy. No, it's true. Have you ever noticed? You never hear that. You never hear that. You never hear it. I mean, there's got to be a reason. I have broken more Elton John records. He seems to have a lot of records. And we beat, and I, by the way, I don't have a musical instrument. I don't have a guitar or an organ. No organ. Elton has an organ. And lots of other people helping. No, we've broken a lot of records. We've broken virtually every record because, you know, look, I only need this space. They need much more room. For basketball, for hockey, for all the sports, they need a lot of room. We don't need it. We have people in that space. So we break all these records. But really, we do it without, like, the musical instruments. This is the only musical, the mouth. And hopefully the brain attached to the mouth, right? The brain, more important than the mouth is the brain. The brain is much more important. But do you ever notice, do you ever hear something? They say, you know, we had a case last week. We were in a great place in Wisconsin, and we had a tremendous crowd, and we had like the choice of a 22,000-seat arena. And in retrospect, we would have packed it, and they would have sent away thousands of people. But the people said to me, very innocent people, they were great, but I hadn't met them. I said, why didn't you use, they filled up a 7,000-seat arena, walked away thousands of people, like over 20. And we would have filled. I said, why didn't you use the big arena? He said, sir, we knew that if you had 5 vacant seats, empty seats, see, vacant is because I was in the real estate business, I use that term. If you had 5 empty seats, they would say, Donald Trump was unable to fill the arena. And I said, you know what, you're right. How about the one from the Washington Post? They got there 4 hours early, and the arena hadn't started even letting people in. So there were just a few people. You all saw that story, I hope. You all saw that story, right? They got there 4 hours, 5 hours. This writer, sleazebag, he didn't get fired. He said Donald Trump had an empty arena. Except when I showed up, the place was packed, and they had to walk away, thousands of people. Right? And I didn't see the story, but you know who saw the story? The people that were in the arena, and they went nuts. And they apologized, but you know where they apologized? On Twitter. They didn't write it. They apologized, but they had the story. Donald Trump, not very good crowd tonight, and they show a totally empty arena that 4 hours later, and by the way, hate to say it, take a look at the pictures for the inauguration. We had some monster crowd. Big monster. Big monster. But take a look at that. So they show an arena before the people started coming in. There were a few people, 4 or 5 hours ahead. And they apologized. It's a disgrace. But let me just tell you, the Democrats, we call them the Democrat Party. You know why? The Democratic Party sounds too good. It sounds better, doesn't it? I always hate saying the Democrat Party. And a lot of people say you made a mistake. Well, actually, the name is the Democrat Party. The Democratic Party sounds too good, so I don't want to use it, okay? The new platform of the Democrat Party is to abolish ICE. In other words, they want to abolish immigration enforcement entirely. That's what they want to do. They want everybody coming in. And you know, the beauty with ICE, they're so tough. When you have these MS-13 thugs come in, ICE goes in and wipes them out like nothing. Because they're much tougher. They wipe them out. And they liberate towns on Long Island and other places. You know, it's like you're occupied. It's like a nation is occupying your country. So we're taking them out by the thousands. And if it weren't for ICE, we wouldn't be doing it. These are savage gangs, MS-13 and others. We will not stand for these vile Democrat smears against our law enforcement. And that includes our great police. That includes our great Border Patrol. That includes our military, where they're always fighting against funding for the military. We will always stand by proudly the heroes, and there are heroes on ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement and our military. Every day I'm president, we will track down the gang members, drug dealers, child predators, and criminal aliens that we find. We will get them, we will throw them the hell out of our country or put them in jail. So this year, in November, if you want to save ICE, and frankly, if you want to save your law enforcement, if you want to save your military, getting military funding, we got $700 billion, the biggest ever, then next year $716. We saved our military. Getting military funding from these Democrats is almost impossible. They don't want it. They don't care about our military. They don't care about our law enforcement. They couldn't give a damn. You better vote Republican. We need more Republicans. If you want to protect your family and your community, then you have no choice. You have to vote for Matt. You have to vote for Republicans. If you want to have a country, if you want borders, how about borders? Wouldn't it be nice to have borders? And yes, we are already building the wall. It started in California and San Diego. 1.6 billion. We're asking for 5 billion. And I'll tell you what, it's brutal with these people. They don't want it. They know it's the right thing to do, but they think it will help me. It's not even the Republicans. They think it'll help Trump. If we do it, it's good for Trump. Let's not do it. They're great Americans. Every day we are keeping our promises. We've created 3.4 million jobs since Election Day, which nobody can even believe. Nobody believes it. I always say, if I would have said that on the campaign trail, when I was here or anyplace else, it would have been brutal. They would have said, how can you possibly say a thing like that? 3.4 million new jobs. Unemployment claims are at a 45-year low. African American and Hispanic American unemployment have reached the lowest levels in the history of our country. Remember, what do you have to lose? Remember? What do you have to lose? People didn't like it when I said that. What do you have to lose? Guess what? We're right. In fact, a new poll came out last week. We're up in like a week, 10 points with the Hispanic community. 10 points. Because they want to be safe. Unemployment among women is at the lowest level it's been in 65 years, and within a couple of weeks, history. Our economic policy can be summed up in 3 very simple but beautiful words: jobs, jobs, jobs. Since the election, we have lifted 3 million people off of food stamps. And by the way, on a humanitarian basis, that's a great thing. Do you know how much money we save by doing that as a country? 3 million people, and it's going up fast. Wages for the first time in 18 years are rising again. People can go out, they can actually choose a job, and they have wages that are rising. And 6 months ago, Republicans passed the biggest tax cuts in American history, the biggest in American history. Everybody in this room is benefiting. Everybody is benefiting. We slashed taxes for working families and saved our family farms. We saved family farms. As a result of our tax cuts, $300 billion poured back into the United States just in the first quarter of this year alone. And we're going to have a lot more than that. $300 billion came back. Money that would have never been able to come back into our country. It's coming back, it's pouring back. I think the number is going to be $5 trillion, but $350 billion has already come back. Apple Computer is spending $350 billion on new campuses, on new facilities. They're bringing back $350 billion. They're putting up their own money. They're going to actually have, probably subject to the tax code, about $230 billion come back. 95% of U.S. manufacturers are optimistic about the future. That's the highest number ever. Think of it, 95% of anything. You don't hear that. We also repealed, despite the thumb down at 2 o'clock in the morning, we also repealed the most horrible aspect of the failed Obamacare health care. It's called the individual mandate, so it's gone. It's gone. Gone. It's gone. And, you know, that was where you had to pay a lot of money for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health care, okay? One of the truly rip-offs. That was a big rip-off, but we got rid of it. So all of you people, how many people were you paying for not to have it? A lot of people, right? Yeah, a lot of people. A lot of people, they paid not to have health care. That doesn't work. We're allowing businesses to join forces to buy better health care for less money through association health plans. They just came out 2 weeks ago, and they cross state lines. We're allowed to cross state lines. You're going to get very low prices for very good health. Millions of people are already signing up. And after decades of waiting, we opened Anwar in Alaska for energy development. They've been trying to get that approved for 40 years. We've eliminated record numbers of job-killing regulations. We've stopped coal, the assault on our farmers, our ranchers, our hunters, energy producers, and our great and loving miners. We love our miners. And we put our miners back to work. Clean coal. We are proudly and strongly protecting our public lands for future generations. You see that. You see it all over. You see what we're doing. You see legislation. You see what's happening. We approved the Keystone and the Dakota Access Pipelines right away. 48,000 jobs. 48,000 jobs. We withdrew from the job-killing Paris Climate Accord. One of the most unfair deals. I said, boy, I'm going to get killed when I approve this one. When I sign off this, you know, it sounds so pretty, right? The Paris climate. Who wouldn't do that? Except it's horrible for us. Great for other countries, but horrible for us. We took historic action to safeguard your constitutional freedoms, protecting religious liberty, defending the Second Amendment, and confirming a record number of circuit court judges. And we are bringing back our wealth from foreign countries. You know this, right? We are bringing back our wealth from foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years. For too long, we watched and we waited and we saw as other countries stole our jobs, cheated our workers, and gutted our industry. You look at all the places here, yeah, even here. But you look at some places, you go up to New England and you still see the remnants where they moved down to Mexico under NAFTA, one of the worst deals that we're negotiating. And I have a feeling they'll come along. We'll see. And if they don't, we'll actually do better. We'll actually do better. The United States of America was the piggy bank that everybody was robbing. And let me tell you, our allies in many cases were worse than our enemies. We opened our country to their goods, but they put up massive barriers to keep our products and our goods the hell out of their country because they didn't want that competition. And that's not free trade, that's stupid trade. We're not going to do that. We don't do that anymore. We have to have fair and reciprocal, that being the more important word. We need reciprocal. They charge a 50% tax, we charge a 50% tax. Then we say, look, let's bring it to nothing, or I don't care, one way or the other, do whatever you want. And then I'll have people complaining. They'll say, it's incredible. So we have countries ripping us up for years. And then when I say, well, look, we're going to put tariffs on there because they have been ripping us. We have trade deficits. They have surpluses that would be unbelievable. So they have all of this. And I say, we are going to do something about it. And I'll get calls from some politicians. Oh, that's terrible. I said, no, you don't understand. We're going to make great deals. No, just leave it the way it is, please. Just leave it the way it is. Leave it the way it is. I said, no. We have all the cards. We're the bank that everybody's stealing from. You saw with China, $50 billion, and another $200 billion, frankly, is waiting. Nobody's ever seen this before. Because China, and I have great respect for President Xi and for China. You have to respect him, you have to admire him. Now they'll say, Donald Trump loves China. Loves China more than he loves the United States. These people. But, so you have to be careful what you say. Because if I say that, I do. I respect China and I respect President Xi. But they've been killing us. $507 billion in trade deficits last year. 507. Who the hell can lose 500? Then you want to do something about it, you get attacked. Oh, that's not nice. That's not free trade. The war was lost on trade many years ago. You know, when they were saying, not a free trader, I said, no, the war was lost, but now we're going to win it. And because we have all the cards. But it's always helpful when you don't have the little ones sniping at your heels. Because it's easier to negotiate when you have support. You don't have some senator that was forced out of office because he didn't like me saying bad things like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that against China. We shouldn't be doing that against so-and-so. We are in such a great position. Other countries are calling us. Do you know that if we knock down the trade deficit, right, the trade deficit, by just a little bit, 25%, and we can do that easily. That's easy. If we do that, we pick up 1 point in GDP. Does anybody know that? That's $3 trillion, and that's 10 million jobs. That's just 25%. We pick up 1 point. And speaking of GDP, remember when I'd say it's going to go to 3% pretty quickly and all of this? Well, now the Atlanta Fed just predicted 4.8%. Now, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I can only tell you this. It's going to be a lot better than you had with Obama. And if these people got elected, you would have gone down like you've never seen anything go down. They wouldn't have taken the regulations off. They wouldn't have given you the tax cuts, the Democrats. You would have had an economy that was going to crash and burn. It was ready. And now we've got something that's a rocket ship. And every time I meet a leader of another country, which is often, they always start by saying, sir, I'd like to congratulate you on the incredible job you've done with the United States economy. It's true. Japan, South Korea. Every time they say, I'd like to congratulate you. And others they are actually studying what we've done. They're studying what we've done. But we have the greatest people in the world, and we're doing good. You know, those hats, those beautiful, beautiful hats, make America great again. Soon to be changed to keep America great. Bing, boom, right. Keep America great. Soon to be changed. I can't use make America great again for the second run, right? Doesn't sort of. They said, why the hell did you do it the first time, right? It's called Keep America Great, because what we're doing is incredible. It's incredible. We've created, think of this, since the election, we've created in wealth $7 trillion. 7 trillion. 7 trillion. We're the fastest growing nation on an economy basis. Maybe it's for the big nations, but I heard nation. We're the fastest growing economically nation in the world. Think of that. I add the big nation because they're probably back. I don't know. Maybe it said big nation. Whatever it is, we're doing really well. But we're one of the fastest, and I think we're actually the fastest growing. And we are certainly growing our military and growing our power and our strength. And we're taking care of our vets more than anybody's ever taken care of our vets. Thanks to Republican leadership, America is winning again. We're winning. Remember, I tell you the story. And America is being respected again all over the world. It's been a long time. We're respected. Somebody said, could you tell the winning story backstage? I said, they've heard it. But Steve Daines, great senator, comes up to me. And I say, hi, Steve. And he's going to say, sir, the people of Montana, they're really tired, sir, of all this winning. Too much. They can't take it anymore. They can't take it. We've got to slow it down, sir. They can't take it. I say, Steve, go back to the people. He's going more. Go back to the people and say, I'm sorry, I cannot honor that request. We are going to win, and we're going to win more. We are going to win like we've never won before. Like we've never won before. Because we are finally putting America first. We're putting America first. And by the way, you know, all the rhetoric you see here, the 1,000 points of light. What the hell was that, by the way? 1,000 points of light. What did that mean? Does anyone know? I know one thing. Make America great again, we understand. Putting America first, we understand. 1,000 points of light. I never quite got that one. I'm trying to say, what the hell is that? Has anyone ever figured that one out? And it was put out by a Republican, wasn't it? But we are indeed doing things for this country like nobody believed possible. We're rebuilding our economy, and at the same time, we are restoring our security. We have people flooding our borders like they haven't flooded ever before. They're doing an incredible job, but we've never had a rush like this. That's because people want a piece of our action. They want to come into our economy. They want to come in. Problem is, you have to come in legally. You have to come in through legal channels. Sorry. All of that money that we've secured for our military, all of that, I've directed the Pentagon to begin a process of creating a 6th branch of the United States Armed Forces called the Space Force. You have the Air Force, you will have the Space Force. You know, people are so excited by that. You know, it's not just sending rockets to the moon and rockets to Mars. This is also a military imperative. In fact, in Russia, they said we consider that very threatening. And others did too, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And you know, if it's a part of the Air Force is going to focus sort of on the Air Force. We need a separate branch, and we're working on that. It's called the Space Force, which is very exciting. And people love it. People love it. They get it and they love it. We passed a landmark VA accountability law that everybody said could not be passed. I won't blame the unions and I won't blame civil service, but let's assume they had a little blame. Everyone said couldn't be passed, has not been able to be passed for 45 years, and we just got it passed, VA accountability. So now you can fire people when they don't do a job. We can fire people when they don't do a job. You're fired. You get them the hell out. They're not taking care of our vets. We fire them. They're out of there. Boom. They're out of there. And the other thing that we just passed a few weeks ago, and you've heard me talk about this, I always said, you know, our greatest people, they're the greatest people, the vets. They protected us. Some of them have suffered greatly. And we weren't taking proper care of them. They were waiting in line for 12 days. How about anybody in this audience, go to the doctor, say, I'm sorry, I can't see you for 12 days. Even if you have like a bad cold, you have something. People were going in with nothing much, and they were coming out 6 months later. They can't see a doctor. They were coming out with a terminal illness that could have been corrected easily. And I said, why aren't we just sending people that have to wait for these long periods, just send them across the street to a local doctor. Right? Get taken care of. And we pay the bill. And everybody said, we've been trying to get that passed for 40 years. I got it passed 3 weeks ago. Okay? I'm good at getting things passed. Remember, we had repeal and replace passed, except for one person. And all the Democrats, I have to say. One person plus all of the Democrats. We got no Democrat about it, including Tester. He wasn't there for us. President Trump is a great man. He's a great man. I really got to vote for us. Got to vote for us. We also believe that American foreign aid dollars should promote America's interests and values. We don't need to send your hard-earned money to countries that vote against the United States consistently in the United Nations and other places. We don't need to do it. Remember with Israel, remember when we had 2 votes on something having to do with Israel? I said, we're watching. With all the aid we give all these countries, we're watching. We ended up getting 68 votes. We didn't do anything. Because they're ripping us, they're taking our money, they don't even vote for us because they didn't respect our country, but now they respect them a lot more. And in many cases, they're not getting that money anymore, too. We've stopped them. Instead of apologizing for America, we are standing up for America, and we are standing up for our great American flag. Hey, how about the NFL? Look, I don't want to cause controversy. You're right, USA is right. I don't want to cause controversy, but how about they passed this stupid thing? You don't have to do this anymore. If you don't respect the flag or if you don't like the country or whatever it is, just go into the locker room. Just go into the I think in many respects, that's worse. Isn't that worse than not standing? You know? I think that's worse. So they say, go into the locker room. So, okay, the anthem's getting ready to play. They run into the locker room. Then they come back out. You know what? It doesn't play. It doesn't play. I actually think in many ways it's worse. I heard this thing that they were so happy, the owners. This commissioner, where this guy comes from, I have no idea. They're paying him $40 million a year. And their ratings are down 20%. But you know why the ratings are down? Yes, the flag. But they're also down because people find politics. In other words, hitting Trump incorrectly, but hitting Trump, they find that to be much tougher, meaner, and more interesting than watching a football game. They actually do. And they're watching the cable networks instead of watching football. They're down 20% since this whole thing started with the flag and the anthem. Washington tried to change us, but instead we are actually changing Washington. We've had a big impact. And now we need Matt Rosendale in the Senate to continue our fight to drain the swamp. We're going to get it done. We need to work every day from now until the election for your family, for your community, your country, for your Constitution. And this November, I need you to get your friends, get your colleagues, get your neighbors, and get your ass out to vote. Is that okay? Get your ass out to vote. Vote for Matt. They're going to say, oh, that was not presidential. Watch. That was not presidential. Did I ever tell you how easy it would be for me to be presidential, you know? Like we're all, me, you, we're really smart people. I have, by the way, the most loyal people in the world. They're the smartest people. They're the toughest people. They're the greatest people in the world. But they'll say something like that's not presidential. And what I say, acting presidential is so easy. For me, would be so, it's much easier than what I do. Much easier. And sometimes I have to do it. You walk up to the microphone, right? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the great state of Montana. You have to put a little emphasis, right? This is wonderful to be with you tonight. Thank you for being here. Goodbye. Now, the people of Montana, they know. Loyal citizens like you help build this country, and together we are taking back our country, returning the power where it belongs, to the people. American ancestors crossed oceans, scaled mountains, defeated empires, and built the modern world with their own two hands. They were brilliant. This state, the state of Montana, was forged by incredible pioneer men and women who braved the cold and tamed the wilderness to build a beautiful life right out here in the open. And I did look at those skies. You know, I heard so much about your skies. I heard so much about your skies. I wrote in, I looked at those skies. Not seeing pollution is a wonderful thing, right? Those are beautiful skies. These Montana pioneers were tough. And they were strong, and they were brilliant. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of luxury. But they had faith, they had heart, they had grit, and they had each other. They had each other. And above all else, they loved their families, they loved their country, and they loved their God. We stand on the shoulders of American patriots who knew how to fight, and they knew how to win. You talk about winning, they knew how to win. And with your help, your voice, and your vote, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning. And the truth is, you will never, ever get tired of winning. Never. We won't back down. We won't give in, and we will never, ever surrender. We will never, ever quit. We go forward to victory. Because we are Americans, and our hearts bleed red, white, and blue. We are one people, we are one family, and we are one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America wealthy again. Soon, we will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Montana. Thank you.
All right, you have been listening to President Donald J. Trump's Make America Great Again rally speech at the Four Seasons Arena in Great Falls, and talked for, we think, just a little over an hour, about an hour, 7 minutes, and during that time, he took a lot of shots at Jon Tester, which what we anticipated he would do, as this was a rally speech for Tester's November opponent, Republican U.S. Senate candidate Matt Rosendale. He talked a little bit about Ronnie Jackson, his nominee for the, who has obviously since withdrawn from a nomination for the VA. He took some jabs at the media, at one point calling them the crooked press, the fake news media, saying 75% of media was downright dishonest. He also brought up Elizabeth Warren, who he mentioned as, has nicknamed as the fake Pocahontas. And of course, we have been watching this here in the studio along with Dr. David Parker from Montana State University, who is also our MTN political analyst. Dr. Parker, tell me your thoughts on this speech by President Trump.
So one of the things I encourage the viewers to do is to go look at Ronald Reagan's speech from 1982 in October, which I actually posted on my Twitter account, but you can find it at the American Presidency Project, and compare that speech to this speech. Ronald Reagan never mentioned John Melcher, the incumbent senator. President Trump mentioned Tester a few times and attacked him. And Reagan was also very...
I lost count at, I think, 19.
Yeah. Reagan was very pointed and very careful and very directive, and this speech was all over the place. But what was interesting about this speech, and the reason why I go back to this Reagan speech is important, is that there was actually very little talk about Rosendale. And you go back to the 1982 speech, Reagan comes in, look, this is my package, here's the spending cuts that I want to do, I want to rein in what the Democrats have been doing for over 40 years, and here's this guy, Larry Williams, is going to help me, and talks a lot about Larry Williams' story. There's almost none of that here. And in fact, a lot of discussion was about Hillary Clinton and the fact that he won Wisconsin, which he said no president has done since Eisenhower, which is not true. Reagan did it in 1984. So it was a very strange speech. It was all over the place. It didn't exhibit discipline. Now, on the other hand, that's Donald Trump. I mean, that's what I think got him elected to some extent, because he's not conventional. In fact, he even made fun of the notion of being presidential in this speech. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, I have never seen anything quite like this, and certainly in comparison to Ronald Reagan, very different approach.
He certainly did rile up the crowd, which obviously was a very partisan Donald Trump crowd. So that obviously was to be expected. So, Shannon Newth and Mike Dennison also were in the arena tonight for the speech, and we are going to toss to them now. Shannon, Mike, tell us what you take away from this speech.
Shannon Newth here alongside state political reporter Mike Dennison as President Trump just wrapped up his speech here at the Four Seasons Arena. We heard a mix of him talking about accomplishments, things that are coming up within the next week, and we heard him talk about Jon Tester and Matt Rosendale. Mike Dennison, what are your takeaways from some of this, especially the parts where he talked specifically about Jon Tester?
Well, as we talked about before the show, this is a campaign rally. That's certainly the way it started out. We had him talk a lot about Tester and how he hadn't supported the president. In fact, he's saying, how did this guy even get elected? And about the votes he's taken, and he also went after him over Ronnie Jackson, the VA secretary. A lot of things we've seen and expected. And after that, we kind of heard the usual Trump speech where he's kind of going through his accomplishments and talking about making America great again. That was basically the theme of the speech, I think, after he got through the original political openings for the campaign rally.
And we've heard at recent rallies that Trump has been to campaign rallies in the recent weeks. He's talked about reform for veterans care. He's talked about Ronnie Jackson. Those are points that he's touched on in the last couple of weeks. He did spend the majority of his time at the beginning of the speech talking about the upcoming contest between Rosendale and Tester. He told people here that a vote for Tester would be a vote for Nancy Pelosi. He told people that Tester does not have Montana's interests, that Tester does something else when he gets back to Washington, D.C. What were your responses to his claims about Tester?
Well, I think Tester's done a pretty good job of answering a lot of these criticisms that he's been hearing for the last several months. He's continued to do that. Kind of what struck me about this speech is that after he got through kind of the political attacks, he talked a lot about the economy. He talked a lot about the borders, open borders, and how Democrats are for open borders, and the Democrats support crime. Democrats are against the military and against law enforcement. You know, I think this is the theme we're going to see a lot in this year's elections and looking ahead to the 2020 elections as well. It gave us a preview of what to expect. Now, it's going to be a campaign that is very aggressive and goes after the Democrats for all the things he talked about tonight.
Okay, and again, he was here campaigning for Matt Rosendale, who is taking on incumbent Senator Jon Tester this November. Still very, very loud in here. People are filing out right now. We see people holding up signs still as they're leaving in front of the cameras. So it's been an eventful evening here at the Four Seasons Arena. The president talking for about an hour and a half. We'll send it back to you, Tim.
All right, thanks a lot, Shannon. Thanks a lot, Mike. Joined by David Parker, Dr. David Parker, MTN political analyst. And it was interesting. This was a rally supposedly a rally for Matt Rosendale and against Jon Tester, although the president brought up some of Tester's legislation that he sponsored. Yeah, so what's interesting is, of course, today we saw in the newspapers around the state, we saw a list of bills that Jon Tester had signed by the president. And after these attacks on Tester, the president went on and talked about his administration, and then he took credit for these veterans bills, the VA Mission Act, the VA Accountability Act. Those were Jon Tester's bills. So it was weird in a rally where he's supposed to be getting, you know, excitement about Matt Rosendale, and he's saying that Jon Tester's not keeping Montana's interests at heart. The president takes credit for two of Jon Tester's bills. So that was also a little odd as well. All right. Margaret DeMarco with MTN has been at the Four Seasons today. She has been out in the parking lot of the Four Seasons Arena, and we are going to send it out to Maggie now, who is standing by with at least one President Trump supporter. Maggie?
Where about 12,000 people came out, and Ernie from Conrad was one of the lucky few to make it inside. Ernie, how long did you wait to get inside?
Oh, about 4 hours.
How crazy was it to be in there and hearing the president speak?
It was great. People were being wild, crazy.
What was the atmosphere kind of like for the viewers at home who didn't see this?
Well, it was a great rally. Everybody was excited and having a...
You want to refer back to that was your favorite part?
Oh, I guess I liked them all.
I know one person said that he was a huge jokester. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I do, yeah.
And you've never seen a president before, correct? Why is this the first time that you're coming out to see a president?
Well, I've never had the opportunity before, and the opportunity came up. I thought I'd better do it. Once in a lifetime deal, maybe.
And like I said, about 12,000 people came out. How crazy is it that you actually made it inside?
Well, I'm sure glad I made it inside after that long wait, and it was great. I was happy to be in there.
Well, this is Ernie from Conrad. He made it inside. I'll send it back to you, Tim.
Thanks a lot, Margaret, and thanks a lot, Ernie, for patiently enduring the heat and going to the Trump rally. Earlier, Jonathan Ambarian, we tried to go to him earlier. We had some problems, but we did get a chance, Jonathan did get a chance to talk to some protesters who were at the rally today. Let's hear from Jonathan.
here at Montana's Expo Park, there was a protest area set aside outside Four Seasons Arena for people who wanted to show their opposition during President Trump's visit. The protesters raising issues like their concern about what they call hateful rhetoric coming from the president. There are also many people here supporting Senator Jon Tester for re-election. Probably about 200, maybe a few more people here at the height of the day. Things have calmed down a little bit, although a few minutes ago, as people who weren't able to get into the rally were leaving, there were a couple of heated words exchanged between some of the protesters and some of the Trump supporters. But overall, organizers say things have gone peacefully here today, and they're relatively happy with how it all went down. In Great Falls, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Jonathan, for that report. And we are here, of course, with Dr. David Parker, MTN political analyst. Dr. Parker, talking a little bit more, looking a little bit more into the speech. How do you think this plays among Trump and Bullock voters?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is not clear, Montana is not necessarily a red state. It's a purple state, like my tie today. And you have a number of independents, who switch to Republicans and Democrats. And the key here, Trump-Bullock voters. I mean, in 2016, Trump wins, but so does Steve Bullock. How does this speech appeal to them? And the problem is I didn't see an argument other than, you got to like me. Now, I suppose if you like him and his style, then you're going to be excited about Donald Trump, and you're maybe not going to vote for Jon Tester. But the argument was all over the map. It wasn't clear. It wasn't laser focused. And I think, especially among independent voters who tend to not pay as much attention to politics, you got to get their attention, and you got to make it direct. And I'm not sure it was there. It was kind of a speech that was moving all over the place.
So after watching this speech, do you think the people who may be undecided in the Tester-Rosendale race would be leaning one way or the other?
I'm not sure that this gives them much insight into either Rosendale, because it wasn't talked about a lot, and even the attacks on Tester came much earlier and weren't as pointed as I would have expected. I suppose if I were to do this rally, I would have blasted Jon Tester, talked about how awesome Matt Rosendale is, and left it at that. But then again, I'm not president of the United States. All
right, you're taking a live look outside of the Four Seasons Arena now, where the motorcade is now making its way back to the Montana Air National Guard, where President Trump will board Air Force One and then will depart and will take off for Newark, New Jersey for his next stop on his agenda. About, as Maggie said, there was about 12,000 people on hand today, and about 6,600 were able to get inside the arena. President Trump talked about that. He apologized to the people who were outside who couldn't get in to the arena today. So any closing thoughts, Dr. Parker, on today's political rally?
The biggest question I have here is, will President Trump come back to Montana when it gets closer to the election? And the other question I have here is, in the upcoming weeks, when we start seeing some polls in the Senate race, where are we going to see Jon Tester and versus Matt Rosendale, and to see if this has any effect. Right now, the earlier polls have shown, I think, that Tester has been in the lead in that race. We'll see if this changes anything.
It's interesting for a sitting president to come to Montana. Do you think Jon Tester would bring any big-name Democratic supporters to campaign on his behalf?
I can't imagine that he would. I mean, remember here, the key here for Jon Tester to win re-election is he has to win his base. I think the Democratic base is definitely energized and with him. He's got to win independents. They have to break for him. And he might have to win some Republican votes. I'm not sure bringing a bunch of Democratic speakers into the state is terribly helpful for him at this particular point.
All right, well, that, I believe, I don't know if we had, here, there's a shot of the inside the arena. It's emptying out quickly, but they need to get it cleared out. And all of our press people will be exiting the arena as well. Again, we have this, we will have President Trump's speech on our website for you to watch in its entirety later on this evening. Of course, we're going to be continuing to cover this in our 10 o'clock news and online as well. We're going to wrap things up now. We want to thank Dr. David Parker for joining us, making the trip from Bozeman, from Montana State University today, and thanks for all the analysis. And again, will be very interesting here in the next few months as we get closer.
You know, I enjoy coming to Great Falls. It's good to be here in the studio again.
All right. And I'd like to thank all the people who helped make this possible, Eric Gaylord, James Rafferty, and of course all the people with MTN for all their hard and dedicated work. And that is going to wrap it up. I believe for some of you, we'll be going to a very shortened version of your 5:30 news after a short break.